I speak the truth, so I know what I'm doing is good, and there are a lot of souls out there that need to be saved. So that will not stop me from doing that. No, never. Only God says when I go. A plane crash. It was June 26th, so almost a year ago now. I was a passenger in a small Piper plane, and it began to have engine trouble right before we landed in Georgia from Florida, and it was shaking like a washing machine in the air. I describe it that way. Air traffic control told the pilot to do something strange, and that was to turn around, not make an emergency landing, but go to a whole other airport in the middle of nowhere, which the pilot complied. I was praying with my hands on the plane the whole time, and it was an awful experience, I can tell you that. And then when we almost got to the other airport, the plane's engine just stopped. The RPMs went to 0, and it literally dropped from the sky at 2,000 feet in the air. So there is a patch of woods, and that's where it crashed from the top. There's no entry point. Thank goodness there was a logger's trail that the plane, I feel, was divinely guided onto a logger's trail, because all I could see were pine trees, and crashed. And all I know is I instantly saw white. I almost feel like my spirit left and then came back, and my senses came back one at a time, which is strange. So I could see, but I couldn't hear. And then it felt like a bomb went off, and then I couldn't breathe for a long time. Then I finally started to grunt and breathe and figured out I went into doctor mode and saw my left leg was turned 120 degrees to the opposite direction, which was not good. And then I decided I'll be a doctor, and the pilot lost consciousness and regained consciousness. Anyway, the locator never went off, and the air traffic controller never called 911. Even though he knew we were crashing. I was able to stabilize my leg by pulling my body out. That my door was broken, so I pulled my body out onto the wing to lay on the wing, and my leg was in the cockpit. I had to reorient the pilot multiple times, so I couldn't hear the sirens. I knew that wasn't right, so I found a phone. Had to go back and find a phone on the floor and called 911. 911 said they're on the way, but nobody came for 15 minutes at least, and I demanded from 911 that they tell me the truth, that they did not know where we were. They admitted they did not know. They just lied. So they are just randomly driving around, I suppose. I then realized I could pin my location to somebody else, and so I pinned the location. Then I was able to get 911, call that person, and then they had the general area. Heard sirens, but still they couldn't get close because we were in the woods, and that was as close as there's no entry point. They didn't know where to look. So they had 20 units surrounding, and then the 911 operator said, "Carrie, you're going to have to scream as loud as you can for them to find you. It's going to take forever." And that's when I feel like God filled me, because at this point I was in shock. I was dehydrated. It was hot. I was getting burns on my back. And I was filled with this voice, this roar, I call it, that could only be from God. I could never yell that loud now. And I yelled so long and so loud for, I don't know how long, but it seemed like a long time. And then finally a sheriff was able to hear it, and he had a megaphone. He came through the woods. They cut down trees, and then got air evac'd out of that situation. But definitely a lot of divine interventions. They thought I was going to be paralyzed when I went to the trauma unit from the mid-thoracic down. And when I heard about this person being paralyzed, I felt bad for them. I said, glad it's not me. And then I looked, because they used trauma names. My trauma name was Zebulon. And I kind of looked, I was hazy from the drugs, and I saw the word Zebulon on my wristband. I'm like, oh no, that's me. And I said, no, not my story, not after all that. This is not happening. No, right? No. And then also at that time, people found out that we were in the crash, so they started to pray. And I believe this was God, because they were preparing me that I was going to be paralyzed. And then a few hours later, the same doctors came into my ICU room and said, very perplexed, looked at me and said, well, we don't know what happened. We don't know what wrong, but we're wrong. But we looked at your scans again, and there's no way you're going to be paralyzed. You're fine. Take her off all the precautions. And I kind of smiled because I know miracles are real. I know the power of our minds. I know that there's divine intervention. And so there's no doubt in my mind what happened with that. And since then, I'm a very strong spirit. And so I've been using alternative ways to get better. Of course, there's nutrition, but there's something called a Juven plate that builds bones, reverses osteoporosis. That helped a bit. I did some scalar wave. I did the pulse electromagnetic frequency, all those kinds of things. So, and prayer is pretty powerful. People were praying for me. They laid hands on me in the room. And when they did, I could feel this supernatural, I don't know how to explain it. It's just supernatural feeling that went through my body, and particularly my leg. I felt almost like I could almost see a plasma blue coming from it. It was pretty fascinating. So yeah, it's I had a lot of beautiful experiences that came out of it. Yes.
How are you feeling now from the injuries, like a year later? Are you kind of feeling?
I feel like the Tin Man that needs oil sometimes. Yes, I mean, we did a full-on crash impact. Okay, the seats exploded. So yeah, it's not like before, but I mean, compared to what I could be, it is miraculous. I'll need one more surgery, but I at this point don't trust the hospital, so I'm waiting on that one. But I'm walking. Yeah, so good. Traveling. On airplanes, not small ones, just big ones. They have double engines, backup mechanisms, more than one pilot. All I know is that from early on, the investigation has been covered up, and I don't know the reasons why. I've been cut out of the investigation, and it's apparent that it's bigger than me, and so I leave that alone. It's wise to walk away. I have a righteous anger. No, because that doesn't, I only fear God, a healthy fear, and I speak the truth. So I know what I'm doing is good, and there are a lot of souls out there that need to be saved. So that will not stop me from doing that. No, never. Only God says when I go. So to my last breath, I will be having that lioness roar, and I'll be that mama bear, papa bear, what we all should be, while still never losing my loving kindness.